Hello everyone, welcome to another video. This video will be the next part of my Nami Mill Fundamentals series, and in today's video I will be discussing triggers in Nami. So, what are they? What are the best ones? What do they do? Yeah, all that stuff. So firstly, what is a trigger? Well, basically it's when you take a life, you will pick up a card because the cards are your life, and if the card has a trigger, then you can use the trigger effect. An example is this Sanji's Pilaf, which has activate this main effect, this card's main effect, which is basically to draw 2 cards. And yeah, I'm sure most people know that this is a very good card in Nami, partly because it's its trigger, but also because of its main effect. But yeah, so here I made a list with all the cards that have some potential to be in a Nami deck because of their trigger, but I would say like at least half of them you generally don't see, maybe more. But I wanted to go through them and see what they do and then discuss my thoughts on them. So let's begin. First we have Black Maria. It's a 3-cost 3k character with 1k counter, and its activate main 2-cost and rest this character to draw 1 card. So, and the trigger is play this card. So it has the potential to draw, but it's fairly expensive. But I guess you could see it in some kind of Animal Kingdom Pirates deck. But yeah, it's not very commonly used in Nami Mill. Next is the 2-cost event. That time is when your friend's dreams are laughed at. And it's a counter event. With this turn, when one of your characters would be KO'd in battle, you may instead discard 1 card from your hand, and the trigger is draw 1 card. So the trigger is decent to draw 1 card, but the effect is fairly expensive, so this is not seen very much. But it is a fairly new card, so maybe, and also I think it could depend on the meta whether or not this is good. But yeah, I mean generally there's not that many characters you want to save in Nami, so it's not played very much. Next we have Hope. It's a 2-cost event with the main effect. Look at the 4 cards of your deck, reveal 1 card with a cost of 4 or more and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order, and the trigger is activate the main effect. So it's a searcher, but Nami Mill generally doesn't run cards that cost 4 or more, or not many at least, so it's not that good in Nami Mill. Then we have Overheat. Is a 2-cost event with the counter effect. Your leader or up to 1 of your characters gains plus 4k power during this battle. Then return up to 1 active character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. The trigger is return up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand. And the types are 7 Warlords of the Sea and Don Quixote Pirates. This card is sometimes seen, at least before it was used quite a lot, but nowadays it's been kind of replaced with Snake Dance, which has a similar effect, but in many cases is a bit better. But the fact that you can get 4k power and pick up a Kaya makes this a good card. And then the trigger can also, I mean, you can pick up a Kaya or something, or you could bounce your opponent's stuff, so it's still pretty good. Especially like if you have some 7 Warlords of the Sea searchers, I guess you could play this, like the Sengoku. But yeah, not always used. Then we have Desert Spada. It's a 1-cost event with counter. Your leader up to 1 of your characters gains plus 2k power during this battle. Then look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and return them to the top or bottom of the deck in any order. The trigger is draw 2 and trash 1 from your hand. So this is a very good trigger in Nami, because drawing 2 that's like the most you can hope for. Although you have to trash 1 card, but that's generally okay. And also the counter event yeah, is decent to add 2k and then rearrange your top or move it to the bottom. Pretty good. So very commonly used in Nami Mill. Next we have Impel Down All Stars. It's a 1-cost, and with the main effect of you may trash 2 cards from your hand. If your leader has the Impel Down type, draw up to 2 cards. And the trigger is draw 2 cards, and the type is Impel Down. So basically the main effect does nothing in Nami Mill, because Nami does not have the Impel Down type. She has East Blue. But it's still used very often in Nami Mill because the trigger is so good, just to draw 2. And generally you need to trash cards from your hand anyway, like with Kaya or with Gum Gum Giant Gavel. This is still a very good card, even if it does nothing in your hand. And worst case, you could even use it for 1 cost to go down to like 4 or lower cards in hand, which can then allow you to draw with like Love Love Mellow or something. So yeah, it's commonly used in Nami Mill. Then we have Arabesque Brickfist. It's a 2 cost with the main effect of return up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand, and the trigger is activate this card's main effect. So you can bounce your opponent's stuff or pick up a Kaya or something. Sometimes used in Nami, but I think it could depend on the meta. Like if it's a fast meta, maybe it's good to be defensive. Although it works fairly decently in control matchups also, because you can use the effect on your own Kaya to draw more. But yeah, it's not amazing, so not always used. Then we have Gum Gum Rain. It's a 0 cost event. With counter, you may trash 1 card from your hand. Your leader or up to 1 of your characters gains plus 3k power during this battle. And the trigger is return up to 1 character with a cost of 2 or less to the owner's hand. So it's a free event basically. I mean, you have to trash from your hand, and then you can get up to 3k power, so that's okay. But the trigger is basically pick up a Kaya. I mean, because generally there's not much cost 2 or less of your opponents that you may have to bounce. So I think mainly you use this to pick up your own stuff. But yeah, I mean, you could still pick up your own opponent's stuff. Then we have Deathwink. It's a 3 cost counter with your leader up to 1 of your characters gains plus 6k power during this battle. Then draw cards until you have 2 cards in your hand. And the trigger is return up to 1 character with a cost of 7 or less to the owner's hand. So the counter is good because it can draw you up to 2, and I mean, you get 6k power, which will block out of many attacks. Of course it costs 3 cost, which is a bit more expensive than most counter events, but it's still used sometimes. And then the trigger can pick up a lot of your opponent's stuff, but also you can pick up a Kaya if you feel like you have the time. So it's used sometimes, but I think lately it's been replaced with other stuff. Then we have Usopp's Rubber Band of Doom. It's a 1 cost event with counter up to 1 of your leader or characters gains plus 2k power during this battle. Then you may trash the top card of your deck. And the trigger is draw 1 and trash the top card of your deck. So the trigger is basically mill 2, because you draw 1 and trash 1. And the counter is add 2k power and trash and mill 1. So this is a great event. It's almost always used in Nami Mill. And yeah, I mean, it also has the East Blue, so it's searchable with Apis. So it's a great event, very, very often used in Nami Mill. Next we have Gum Gum Giant Gavel. It's a 1 cost event with counter. You may trash 1 card from your hand. Up to 1 of your leader gains plus 2k power during this battle. Then you may trash the top 2 cards of your deck, and the trigger is return up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less to its owner's hand. So this is also a very strong event used in Nami Mill. The counter is very cheap and you get a lot of power for it, and you mill 2, which is amazing. The trigger is not that good. I mean, you can pick up like a Kaya or your opponent's 4 cost character, you can bounce. So you don't always use this trigger. I would say more often than not I don't use it. Maybe that's not correct, but that's just my playstyle. But yeah, it's a great event, maybe the best card in Nami Mill, or at least close to the top. So yeah, very often used. Next we have Sanji's Pit Up, which I talked about before. It's a 3 cost event with draw 2, and the trigger is the same. And yeah, it's a great card. It's not the most Dawn efficient or mill efficient card, like Kaya is draw 2 for 1 Dawn, whereas this is draw 2 for 3 Dawn, but still is great. The trigger is great. Yeah, it's an amazing card used in basically every Nami Mill deck. Yeah, next is 3000 Worlds. It's a 4-cost event with main, place up to 1 character with a cost of 5 or less at the bottom of its owner's deck. The trigger is place up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less at the bottom of its owner's deck. Yeah, this is a removals event, so it could depend on the meta whether or not this is good, but I think lately it's not used very much. But yeah, it's a possibility to add for future maybe. Then we have Gum Gum Red Rock. It's a 6-cost with main, place up to 1 character at the bottom of its owner's deck. And the trigger is place up to 1 character with a cost of 4 or less at the bottom of its owner's deck. So it's the same as with 3000 Worlds. Basically it's a removal event, and probably depends on meta whether or not it's useful, but generally not used in Nami Mill. Then we have Dragon Twister Demolishing Wind. It's a 2-cost event with counter. Give up to 1 of your leaders or characters plus 4k power this battle. Then place up to 1 cost 1 or lower character on the bottom of its owner's deck. And the trigger is return up to 1 cost 6 or less character to its owner's hand. So the counter, I mean, you get 4k power, which is good. Then you can bottom deck something, but I mean you can bottom deck like a Searcher or something. It's not that great. Also, you could even bottom deck your own Kaya just to eventually draw it and then mill 2 with it, which is technically you gain mill, but I don't think it's that good. The trigger is decent. I mean, you get to pick up something of your own or your opponent's stuff, but yeah, it's not used very often in Nami, and I don't expect it to be used much in the future. Then we have Hound Blaze. It's a 2-cost with main effect up to 1 of your leaders or characters gains plus 3k power during this turn. Then place a character with 2 or less cost on the bottom of its owner's deck. And the trigger is return a character with a cost of 3 or less to its owner's hand. So this gives power, which is not really something you care about in Nami, but the trigger at least can bounce something, so you could pick up a Kaya. Not used very much in Nami, basically not at all. Nami Mill. Then we have I Could Never Doubt a Woman's Tears. Main with it's a 1-cost event with main up to 1 of your leader or characters, gains plus 1k for this turn, power I guess. Then reveal the top card of your deck and put up to 1 cost 2 character into play and put the rest on the top of your or bottom of your deck. Trigger, put up to 1 cost 2 character from your hand into play. So there is a 2-cost Nami Mill deck that some people have played around with. I know, for example, the More That Mill guy YouTuber has tried it, but it hasn't been very successful, and I don't think it will in the future either, but at least it's a possibility to do something more interesting. But in Nami Mill generally this is not used. So next we have Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. It's a 7-cost event with main effect place up to 2 cost 6 or less characters in any order on the bottom of their owner's deck, and it has type Navy. And the trigger is place up to 1 cost 5 or less character on the bottom of its owner's deck. So this is sometimes seen in Nami, at least it used to be, but not much lately. I guess if you play a Navy deck, it could be used because you can search for it. And also I guess it depends on the meta whether or not this can be good. So it's a possibility to use it, but lately not used much. But like I said, it depends on the meta probably. Then we have Whitesnake. It's a 2-cost event with counter up to 1 of your leaders or characters, gains plus 1k for this turn, then draw 1 card. And the trigger is look at the top 5 cards of your deck, then place them in any order at the top or bottom of your deck. And the type is Navy. So this is a great event, used very often in Nami Mill. The plus 1k, since it is for the whole turn, it can really mess with your opponent's plans. And it draws, which is great. The trigger is not that useful, I would say. I mean, the main times that I use it personally is when I'm close to the end of my deck and I want to rearrange the deck to make sure it is arranged in a way so that I can be fairly confident I will win the next turn. Like if you get this trigger early, I don't think you will use it very often. It's mainly used in the late game or when you're close to winning. But it can be good. Then we have Snake Dance. It's a 2-cost event with counter. Give up to one of your leaders or characters plus 4k power during this battle. Then return up to one of your characters to its owner's hand. And the trigger is you may return one of your characters to its owner's hand. If you do, return up to one of your opponent's cost 5 or lower characters to its owner's hand. And the type is Kuja Pirates, which is relevant. This is a great event. You get 4k power, which is good, and you can pick up a Kaya or something. And when you use it as a trigger, you can pick up a Kaya and your opponent's stuff, which is good. And the trigger also means that you generally want to keep something on the field when you take a life, because you want to be able to use the trigger ability. So, for example, if you have a Kaya on board and maybe your opponent has 2 attacks, then, and you also have a Snake Dance in hand maybe, so you can counter out of one of your opponent's attacks, then you want to take the first hit before you pick up the Kaya, because if it is another Snake Dance, then you want to be able to use that trigger to pick up your Kaya and maybe bounce your opponent's other attack, which will save you 1 Snake Dance. So there are some cases where you have to take this in mind, and basically whether the order that you take hits from your opponent. And also, like I said, the Kuja Pirates is relevant if you play the Kuja Pirates package, because Gloriosa can find Snake Dance. And then this is an important target. Then we have Slave Arrow. It's a 1-cost event with counter. It says you may return one of your cost 2 or higher characters to its owner's hand, and give up to one of your leader or characters plus 4k power during this battle. And the trigger is draw 2 and place 2 from your hand on the bottom of your deck. So this is not used that often, but it could be used. It's unfortunate that you have to pick up a cost 2 or higher, so you cannot pick up a Kaya, but maybe there will be future characters that cost 2 that we want to play that will fit in a deck with Slave Arrow, but not right now. Next we have Perfume Fever. It's a 2-cost event with main effect up to one of your 7 Warlords of the Sea type leader or characters cards gains plus 2k power during this turn. Your opponent cannot activate blocker when the selected card attacks, and the trigger is draw 1 card. So the main effect is not that relevant, but the trigger is draw 1, so if you want to max out your triggers, your mill triggers, then this is a card you could use, but yeah, not used very often, maybe ever. Next card is Thank You for Loving Me, which is a 1-cost event, which is actually locked to Whitebeard Pirates. But the trigger is draw 1 card, so if you want to max out triggers, you could use this, but you generally don't. Then we have Cross Guild. It's a 1-cost event with main effect, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, reveal and add up to your hand up to 1 card with the type Cross Guild, then return the rest to the bottom of the deck in any order. And the trigger is activate this card's main effect. So it's a searcher for Cross Guild, so in the Cross Guild package you can use it, but in the normal Nami Mill version it's not used very often, or yeah, it's not used at all. Then we have Special Muggy Ball. It's a 2-cost event with main effect. Your opponent returns one of their characters with a cost of 6 or less to the owner's hand. The trigger effect is return 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. So it's a bounce. It can be used, but not commonly used in Nami Mill. Next is Murder at the Steam Bath. It's a 2-cost event with counter. Give up to one of your leader or characters plus 3k power for this battle. Then trash up to 2 cards from your hand. Then trash the same number of cards from the top of your deck. And the trigger is draw a card. So this is a decent event. It gives 3k power, which is not the best, but the fact that it can mill up to 2 and you choose how much means it's a very flexible card. For example, if you have a Death Wink in hand, then you can trash a lot of, or yeah, trash 2, so you go down to maybe 1 card in hand, which is a Death Wink, and then you can get max value from your Death Wink. And also the trigger is decent. I mean, drawing a card, it's nothing special, but it's fine. Then we have Follow Me and I Will Guide You All. It's a 1-cost event with main effect. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 Dressrosa type card and add it to your hand. Then place the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. The trigger effect is activate this card's main effect. So it's a searcher for Dressrosa, so if you want to play Dressrosa you can use this, but it's not a commonly used package in Nami Mill, but it's a possibility. Then we have Barry Pistol. It's a 5-cost with event with main effect, place up to one of your opponent's characters with 6k power or less at the bottom of its owner's deck. And the trigger is activate this card's main effect. And it's a Dressrosa, which is important because you can find it with the searcher. But yeah, it's not used very often in Nami. It's basically a removal that I guess you could use in a Dressrosa deck if you wanted. But yeah, not used often in Nami Mill. Then we have Special Long-Ranged Attack, Bagworm. It's a 3-cost with main effect to draw 1 card, then return up to one of your opponent's cost 2 or lower characters to its owner's hand. Again, also it's type Dressrosa and Straw Hat Crew. So the main effect, I mean, drawing for 1 for 3-cost is not that good, and returning a 2-cost or lower of your opponent's only, that's also not really that good. At least the trigger, with the trigger you can pick up your own Kaya, but yeah, it's a bit too expensive, this card. Maybe if it was 2 down it would be fine, but for now it's not very good and not used that often, but could be used in a Dressrosa list. Next are some cards that I haven't played with much because they were just released on the simulator and because they are for OP11, but I could see some potential for them being used. So I will go through them, but yeah, I don't think they are amazing. But let's start. First we have Gum Gum King Cobra. Is a 1-cost event with counter effect up to one of your leader or character cards. Gains plus 2k power during this battle. Then if you have 4 or less cards in hand, that card gains plus 2k power for this battle. And the trigger is return up to 1 character with a cost of 2 or less to the owner's hand. So it's a 1-cost event that can give up to 4k power, which is good, but it doesn't have any mill really. At least the trigger can pick up a Kaya, so it could lead to some mill, but I don't think it will be an amazing card, but it has potential. Then we have Gum Gum Jet Culverin. It's a 3-cost event with main, return up to one of your opponent's characters with an original cost of 4 or less to the bottom of their deck, and the trigger is return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less to the bottom of their deck. So it's a removal, so it will probably depend on the meta, but I don't think it will be that good. And the fact that the trigger cannot pick up your own stuff means, yeah, it's even less likely to be used. But it's not worthless. Then we have Sables. It's a 4-cost event with main effect, return up to 1 character with a cost of 7 or less to the owner's hand, and the trigger is activate this card's main effect. So it's a bounce, which has use sometimes, but this one is maybe a bit more expensive. But it could be used in some Nami Mill, but generally it's not. Then we have Thrust Pad Cannon. It's a 2-cost event with counter effect, return up to 1 character with a cost of 3 or less to the owner's hand. And the trigger effect is activate this card's counter effect. So again, it's a bounce, could be used, but generally not used in Nami Mill. And finally we have Logtown. It's a 2-cost stage actually. With the activate main, you may place this card and 1 card from your hand on the bottom of your deck in any order to draw 2 cards. And the trigger is play this card. This card does not mill, which is a big downside. At least you can filter out the bad cards in your hand every turn, which is definitely worth something. And the trigger to play it for free is nice, but nothing amazing. So this is not used like at all really, but I mean you could use it in a deck if you want to have some fun, I guess. Next I want to go over what you can typically expect from your triggers in a fairly standard deck. So this is a fairly standard deck used in OP09, and the triggers that it has are the Desert Spadas, the Impel Down All-Stars, the Usopp's Rubber Band of Doom, the Gum Gum Giant Gavel, the Sanji's Pilaf, the White Snake, and the Snake Dance. So I developed a simulator that will show some graphs over what you can expect from your triggers, and I'm going to use this deck as an example. So let's go over there. So here's the simulation that I made. Basically you give how many of each mill that you have. We have 0 mill 1, we have 16 mill 2, so that's Usopp's Rubber Band of Doom, Sanji's Pilaf, Impel Down All Stars, and Desert Spada. And then we have the number of bounce, which is Gum Gum Giant Gavel and Snake Dance. And other triggers are just White Snake. And then there are some other parameters. One is how many cards there are you're willing to keep if you get them in the hand. And then also there is a parameter for setting the limit for how many mill you don't want to see in your hand. And then there is a parameter for the number of simulations you want to run. I will not go over all the code. I mean, it's in Python. I will link to this and you can check it out if you're interested. It's fairly straightforward if you want to look at it. Anyway, I've run it now, so let's take a look at what we got. So generated this histogram, and here we see the number of cards that we can expect with trigger in life with the deck that I showed. Basically 0 is almost never. I mean, 1% basically. The most common will be 3 cards in trigger in life with trigger, which is pretty good. If you want to be exact, the average is 2.8 cards in trigger, but obviously you can't have like 0.8 of a card as in life. So most commonly we will see 3 cards in life with trigger, and even 5 cards happens around 5% of the time. So if you're lucky, you can have all your cards with trigger, mainly because we play so many triggers in this deck. And I mean, Nami really wants a lot of triggers, because you do actually expect to take a lot of life. If you play optimally, you should win with 0 life in Nami, because you want to take get as many triggers as possible, so you get as much resources as possible, and then you want to mill out so you win. That's why sometimes you want to take life even if you could counter out, because you want to get all your triggers and then hopefully win the next turn. But yeah, like I said, 3 cards is what is most common. Then we can see here what is the amount of mill that we can expect from our triggers or from our life. And we see basically 2 and 4 are almost the same at 34%. So 34% of the time we will have mill 2 in our triggers, and 34% it will be mill 4. Sometimes it will be mill 0, which is a bit unlucky, but it can happen. Around 12%, so like what's that? 1 in 8 games or so. But then of course we will have them in hands, like some of them are Sanji's Pilaf, but then we can use them. And if we're a bit lucky, we can have up to 6 mill in life. That happens actually more than 0, so it's actually more common. And yeah, if we're really lucky, we can have up to 8, around 3% of the time. And well, to get all 5 life to be mill 2 doesn't happen often, but I'm sure it has happened. It's not impossible. My simulation says it happens around, I guess this is like every 500 games or so. So yeah, if we get that, we take it. Then we have the number of bounce triggers in life, and they are good partly because we can pick up our Kayas, but also because they can help slow down our opponents. But of course it depends on which bounce it is and what characters our opponents have. But we see here that 40% of the time we will not have any bounce triggers in life. 42% we will have one, and then 2 or more, well, 15% for 2, and then very low for more. And we never have 5 or more. Although I guess it should be possible. Well, yeah, here it says max number of bounce triggers in life. I guess it just rounded down to 0.00 because it's so rare. But technically it's possible. And the average is 0.8. So yeah, now we know what we can expect. So next I want to go over a game where I tried to keep track of my triggers to use that and plan ahead, but of course it can be hard to always know what to expect. But let's take a look at that. So here's the game. It's against Black Yellow Lofi, and we see here I have a peel off and an impel down all-stars in hand. So 2 triggers which I don't want in my opening hand, so I mulligan and I end up with a hand with no triggers, which is great because that maximizes the chances of having triggers in life. So going good so far. I played the Nami and attack with it, of course. Now we see I have picked up some cards with triggers. Now of course that will happen because, well, there are only 5 lives, 5 cards in life, so most of my triggers will actually not be in life, but of course we want having impel down all stars is probably the best to have in life because it doesn't do much in hand, and if you take a life with it, then you get to draw 2, which is great. And we see also that I trashed a peel off, which is unfortunate, but at least I now know that it's not going to be in life. Next I kill off their Charlotte Flampe and play another Nami. Also, I guess one thing I should mention is that there are some cards that can have banish, which basically means when you take a life, your trigger will not, you cannot activate your trigger because the life goes directly to trash. And those are, we generally want to avoid taking life in those cases. I don't think in this game my opponent played any banish cards, but I think there are some yellow cards that can have banish and can give banish, so that is something to keep in mind. Anyway, I'm just continuing checking my trash to check my trigger. Let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think 7 cards with mill 2 in my trash and hand, so there are still 9 possible mill 2 in my life. Although I did search before, I think twice, so technically I probably should know the bottom 8, but I don't remember. I probably don't remember when I was playing either, but yeah, right now I don't remember either. And yeah, my opponent has built up a pretty big board, although some of them are fairly weak, like their Flampes and the Garp. But I don't have many proactive plays, so I just hope that they attack so I can use my White Snake and maybe pick up a Kaya with my Snake Dance. And like I said when I talked about Snake Dance, if I think I can pick up, or if I think I can counter out of one attack, then or out of multiple, I probably want to take the first attack to see what the trigger is, and then if it's nothing good, then I can use my Snake Dance to pick up my Kaya. Because if it is a Snake Dance in my life, then of course I want to use the trigger from that. Now here I actually did the opposite because I used the Snake Dance first. So now that I take this, if it is a Snake Dance, it would have been a big mistake, but it wasn't. So I guess I was lucky in that sense. Yeah, next I try to kill their Guzan. I have 2 Kayas, which is great, but oh, now I picked up a Sandy's Pilaf. That's pretty good because I need proactive plays. I don't remember, do I play the Boodle? Maybe I want to play the Boodle. I don't, okay. Still have 4 life, which is great. I mean, I think generally the Black Yellow Luffy is a bad matchup for, well, it's a good matchup for Nami. It's bad for the Luffy. So if I don't make any too big mistakes, I should have a good chance. Let's actually go back and check here. let's see, I have 1 peel off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 1 in hand, so that's 10. So that's actually most of my mill 2 that I have lost, but there still could be in life. I've gone through half my deck, a bit more. Oh, that's 1 more, so that's 11. 11 mill 2 that are gone, which means I will have to take that into account when counting out how much I can mill. Of course, generally it's hard to plan too far ahead, but when you're getting close to the end, that's when you want to see if you can count on your triggers adding mill or not. But I think it may be a bit too early for that still. My opponent is distributing Dawn, thinking how to attack. They attack with 9k, I counter out. Oh, that's another one, so that's 12. It's not looking good for my life. I think it should be 12 if I'm counting correctly. This one I guess I have to take. Yes, no trigger. So that's unfortunate. Another no trigger, that's a Kaya though, which is a good card. So I play it, get rid of the Impel Down All-Stars. Play the other Kaya, I guess. To attack first, maybe. Yeah. Still 2 life. I mean, I cannot win this turn, so I'm probably gonna have to make sure I can counter out though as much as possible, and then take both my life and then win the next turn. I think that's my plan, if I remember correctly. So now I'm making sure that I can be as efficient as possible with my Dawn and still count as getting a lot of counters. So you see I have 8 Dawn active, and I have the total cost of my cards in hand are 7. So I will try to take that into account. Now I used a Snake Dance, which maybe is wrong, but the fact that they have a lot of big swings made me feel like I should use it first. Oh, that's a good trigger. That maybe helps with getting the win. Maybe I couldn't have won without that. And honestly, I probably could have known that there was an Impel Down All-Stars, because I have definitely searched through my whole deck, and I can see my trash, of course. So I probably should have known that there was an Impel Down All-Stars in life, but yeah, I don't think I did when I played the game. But yeah, now I am continuing to counter out. I'm 6 cards in deck, so I just need to make sure that, and I have 4 in, or draw 4 in hand, so because I have the peel off and the Kaya. Also I have the Gavels. I mean, I'm definitely, I have enough. Just need to make sure I survive. Yeah, so I can even use the Kaya as counter. But also, I do want to take the last life. So now I'm calculating, how much can they at most deal? And I think I come to the conclusion that it should be fine to take this hit, which is why I do it. And you see we get the Snake Dance, which I also should be able to know that my opponent had, but I think this time I was just lucky. But yeah, now I see they attack with an 8k, which is fine, and I can counter out. And I go down to, wait, was there 4 in card in deck now? Did I miscalculate? Anyway, I used the, yeah, okay. So I guess I was wrong. I wasn't at 4 before, I was at 6, but yeah. I got the win eventually using all my triggers, and yeah, well, my cards in hand also. And yeah, that was what I wanted to go through about triggers. As you can see, triggers are very important in Nami Mill. They can literally help you win the game. And we even played this Impel Down All-Stars, which we only played for its trigger. So yeah, it's a very, very important with the triggers in Nami. You should try to keep track of what cards you still haven't seen and see if they can help, if they are in your triggers or in your life. And yeah, here also I made a list of every card that has trigger, although some of them are completely worthless because they are leader locked and stuff, and also they don't have much use. I will not go through this, but yeah, it's interesting to see. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something or found something interesting. I hope you have a good day, and bye.